The first Legend of Zelda was released 34 years ago, but it is still a game one can learn many design lessons from. After all, even though it is flawed and different elements haven't aged well, good design is timeless, and The Legend of Zelda has plenty. At its core lies the main pillar of exploration. The developers wanted to recreate the sense of wonder you get by discovering things. To achieve that, the whole game is based on a single core loop. Explore, discover, empower. The famous starting location is a perfect example of that loop. You stand in a field, the first thing you do is look around and see an entrance to a cave. Naturally, you go inside and find an old man. He warns of the dangers you will encounter and gives a sword to deal with them. Explore, discover, empower. And that sort of stuff is what you will keep doing throughout the entirety of the game, really, being free to go anywhere you'd like from the get-go, with only a couple places out of reach without certain items. If we take a look at the overworld map, 76 out of 128 screens have something for you to discover. Although, to be fair, some of the findings aren't really rewarding. There are a number of people who will take money for door repairs. That can make you a bit paranoid, and certainly it would have been better to have something more positive instead. But still, most of the discoveries do lead to something rewarding and empowering. That empowerment doesn't manifest only in additional health and better weapons, but also extra tools, resources, and even hints. All that helps with exploration, either by making you stronger to deal with enemies you couldn't before, providing alternative paths or ways to reach new places, or figuring out how to find certain secrets. And despite having this reputation of being an obscure game you wouldn't be able to complete without a guide, The Legend of Zelda actually has a wide network of hints that make sure everything mandatory for the game's completion is referenced, alongside a number of more optional things. And if that is not enough, the game's manual holds more information for you, to the point that there is a map which you are free to continue filling up as you explore. Both points are nice ways in which The Legend of Zelda has transcended its technological limitations to make sure players get as many hints as possible while leaving the exploration aspect intact. Yes, there are many unmarked and unhinted at secrets, but not only are they all optional, there are so many of them that if you've got a hunch, chances are high you will find something. Of course, even though nobody blocks you from going wherever, you do have to be prepared to deal with the dangers encountered. The very start of the game is also a lesson in that. You can ignore the cave if you'd like, but then you would need to constantly avoid getting hit by enemies and find alternative means to defeat them when necessary. So, a soft progression does exist in the form of enemy difficulty. These are all enemies that you can meet in the Overworld, alongside their respective health, attack power, and special abilities. Based on that, we can sort of apply an abstract difficulty level to each one. And now, after we place these types of enemies all across the overworld area, we can see how gradually the difficulty increases as we venture deeper. There are some weird curiosities, however. For example, the pathway to Dungeon 1 has a very big difficulty spike near the entrance. This doesn't pose too big of a problem as people tend to just run by, however some may be deterred and think this is a place to come back to later. Another weird thing is that Dungeons 7 and 8 are located within much easier areas than Dungeon 6, which is in this most dangerous corner of Hyrule, not far from Ganon's hideout. This is actually represented within the difficulty of the dungeon itself. If you try to complete it within the numerical order provided by the game, you will encounter a huge difficulty spike that is not there if you do level 7 and 8 first. Which is a good opportunity to talk about the dungeons. Unlike the overworld, the core pillar in the dungeons is not exploration, but combat. This is a set of many arenas where in most cases you have to defeat all enemies to progress, so a door would open, an item would appear, or a hidden switch could be pushed. That being said, dungeons still do utilize the same explore, discover, and power loop, albeit at a different pace. After all, your goal is to explore the dungeon, find the treasures within that will help you reach the Triforce piece. But comparatively speaking, you have to explore more before finding something. And the results of such a discovery don't necessarily lead to empowerment, but also stuff like keys that lead back to more exploration. So from this perspective, dungeons are a perfect pace changer to the overworld, where you follow the same core looping principle, but by wrapping it around a different pillar, it adds variety. However, I did not believe an in-depth look at the dungeon similar to the one we did for the overworld is worth it. The fact of the matter is, while these underground locations make sense from a structural perspective, in terms of actual implementation, they range from fine to with plenty of problems we don't really need to delve in as they're not what matters anyway. Because the meat of design lessons we can learn from the first Legend of Zelda game is not the dungeons, it is the game's overall structure. How you entice exploration from the very first moments, how you reward curiosity at almost every step, how you ensure there is a sense of progression that makes players feel like all this exploration was worth it, how you spread out different hints, nudging them to go looking for other places, and how you change the pace of the game with a set of different underworld locations that repurpose the same loop you've been using for the entire experience. Explore, discover, empower. Which is a very enticing loop indeed. It is no wonder that this game has become a classic, nor is it surprising that this precise structure has been reutilized with a number of updates many years later in the form of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Although talking about that game would be a topic for a different video at a different time. Meanwhile, I invite you to the comment section where we can discuss some other lessons The Legend of Zelda might teach, or anything else you would like to talk about. A special thank you goes to the patrons supporting my channel. Their help is really valued and this video is possible thanks to them. If you enjoy my content, consider checking out my campaign at patreon.com/Farlands. And regardless, don't forget to like and subscribe.